Ladies and gentlemen, every day we experience many what we call random acts. But are they really random? Or are they just signs? Today we're going to talk about let's follow those signs. Actor Mark Harmon's NCIS character, Leroy Jethro Gibbs, claims there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. Many people who have undergone a near-death experience will talk about feeling a presence. Some describe it as that little voice in the back of your mind during major decision points in your life. Others will say it's like an image or a dreamlike figure. This presence has been called a spirit guide or guardian angel or energy force, and there's many other names for it. Sometimes this presence is unknown to us. Sometimes it's a departed loved one whose spirit lives on in us. The doubters will say, well, how can that be? They died. But what really died? While the human body dies, the spirit is an energy force that never dies. So maybe this energy force is a loved one who is helping guide our path if we follow the signs. So as Leroy Jethro Gibbs says, there are no coincidences. So let's take a deeper look. My guest today is my friend Mark O'Brien. Mark is the founder and principal of O'Brien Communication Group, and whose story shows that maybe these random acts aren't random. They're signs, but are we smart enough to follow the signs? Mark, welcome to the Lake Faltering Events.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Frank. I'm so happy to be here.
Mark, give our viewers an overview, your background, and tell them your story, because it's intriguing.
Okay, my background really is one of a slow learner and a late bloomer. I didn't get to college till I was 28, and I don't know that I had any meaningful sense of direction until I was in my 40s. But I was prompted to contact you about this program because I saw something that you had posted on Facebook about the inauguration of this series. Mm-hmm. And it recalled to me something that had happened to me in 1974, which I had never even shared with my wife, oddly enough. So at the time, I was 20 years old. I'll try to abbreviate the lead in as much as possible. Over 2 years, I had been diagnosed with and undergone a series of tests for a hernia in my diaphragm. If you were to look this up, it's called Bachdalek type, Bochdalek. And it's not an uncommon condition. What's uncommon is that it's typically discovered within the child's first 9 months or so of life.
Right.
Digestive problems, breathing problems, etc. I manifested none of that. At any rate, it was discovered in the summer I was 20. I went to get it fixed. The surgical procedure almost seems medieval at this point, but it consisted of their making an incision from almost right next to my sternum on the left side and cutting me all the way around to underneath my left shoulder blade, breaking a rib, putting in a jack and jacking it open. So I'm lying on my side like this, and they got my side open, and everything that was supposed to have been in my abdomen because of this diaphragm was actually up in the left side of my chest. So they knew they had to repair the diaphragm, but it hadn't occurred to them before they got in there, they didn't have any room to put that stuff. So they ended up making this zigzag incision from right below my sternum until right above my navel, and taking it out and just literally laying it on the table, fixing the hole, and then stuffing it back in. Well, during the course of this, for whatever reasons, I started to hemorrhage. And I didn't find out until later that I almost bled out, and I don't remember how many units of blood they had to give me. But what occurred to me when I saw your Facebook post is that, everybody talks in terms of, it's almost a cliche, the lights. the white lights. And I saw them. I can't tell you that I saw whatever people think they see, God, angels. I don't believe I saw that. What I did feel, though, was a very, very comforting presence. I suppose now I would characterize it as an energy, and I felt absolute serenity. I don't recall making a choice, to go one way or the other, but I did see that. I did perceive that for quite some time. So obviously enough, I made it and spent, I don't remember, 2 or 3 days in the intensive care unit and then 2 weeks in a regular patient room before I could finally come home. But all of those things started to come back to me when I saw your Facebook post. So I reached out. Mm-hmm. And that experience, I loved the expression you used, reading the signs. That experience yielded a number of signs to me as I grew older, as I started to pursue my education, as I started to pay more attention to what we've already referred to here as signs. And they are absolutely there. They are absolutely not accidental. We just need to choose to look for them. And I'm a little bit skeptical that some people might say, well, if you choose to look for them, doesn't that mean you're imagining them? No, there's just way too much evidence that they're not being imagined.
Absolutely. There is, in continuing research, since we launched this series, I was told roughly 5% of the population has experienced this near-death experience. So if you have 331 million people in the United States, that's 60 million, if I'm doing the math right. That can't be a coincidence.
Oh, no.
That's far too many.
I also would have folks know that one of the most influential books in my life, and I've written about it quite a bit, is The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. And your guest, Dr. Kerr, is that how you pronounce it?
Shelley Kerr.
Shelley Kerr, your first guest in this series. And I actually had to make notes while she was talking. She referred to spirit guides or angels, and she said, what is going on? And she said, there has to be something more. And I would like to share this quick excerpt, and I have 2 from The Hero with 1,000 Faces. So the entire notion of The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell uses this term monomyth. And what he means by that is that all myth stories across all time, culture, people, geography, all adhere to the same pattern. There's something extraordinary about the hero's origins, and then the hero undergoes this journey and passes down into this underworld. It could be, you hear the expression dark night of the soul. It could be physical, it could be geographical, it could be psychological. Undergoes an initiation and then returns. Mm-hmm. So this is the first one I want to share to you. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. The first encounter of the hero journey is with a protective figure who provides the adventure with an amulet for the dragon forces he is about to pass. What such a figure represents is the benign, protecting power of destiny. A promise that the peace of paradise, which was known first within the mother womb, is not to be lost, that it supports the present and stands in the future as well as in the past, that though omnipotence may seem to be endangered by the threshold passages and life awakenings, protective power is always and ever present within the sanctuary of the heart, and even existing within or just behind the unfamiliar features of the world. One has only to know and trust, and the ageless guardians will appear.
Wow.
It is completely about paying attention.
Exactly.
And I said just before we started to record that much of Campbell's work, and he published The Hero with a Thousand Faces, by the way, in 1949, came from his study of Jungian and Freudian psychology and Jung's notion of the collective unconscious. Mm-hmm. So I would like to share one more thing with you.
Sure.
The symbols of mythology are not manufactured. They cannot be ordered, invented, or permanently suppressed. They are spontaneous productions of the psyche, and each bears within it, undamaged, the germ power of its source. The bold and truly epoch-making writings of the psychoanalysts are indispensable to the student of mythology, for whatever may be thought of the detailed and sometimes contradictory interpretations of particular cases and problems, Freud, Jung, and their followers have demonstrated irrefutably that the logic, the heroes, and the deeds of myth survive into modern times. It has always been the prime function of mythology and rite to supply the symbols that carry the human spirit forward in counteraction to those other constant human fantasies that tend to tie it back. I think this is a point at which people might say, oh, it's about faith.
No.
Maybe. I think these beliefs are much more grounded in reality, and not only that, but in consistency. So at the point at which I discovered Joseph Campbell, I was this young Irish guy who was struggling with what I took to be the dogmatic precepts of the Roman Catholicism in which he had been raised. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, oh no, what am I going to do now? I can see before I even open this book that I'm going to be called to perceive the figure, the character of Jesus Christ as another mythological manifestation. And what I came to believe is that he is. He happens to be one that has a particular following, but the fact that he is one manifestation diminished it for me, diminished that realization, not at all. And you can go through the Bible, you can go through history, you could even talk about comic book characters, all of which follow the exact same patterns.
That's right.
Siegel and Schuster, the two guys who wrote the first Superman stories in 1938, they were teenagers. What did they know about myth? So here's this figure who's got an absolutely extraordinary birth. He's rocketed off of Krypton, and he's discovered by Jonathan and Martha Kent in this little capsule, looks like an egg, in a field. And then he goes on to have his own trials, and how is he going to deal with these superpowers and all this stuff? And then becomes, obviously some kind of saving or savior figure. And mm-hmm. that can't be accidental, at least in the way I perceive it.
Exactly. What I got with Dr. Kerr, she was amazing, is regression, having past lives, because as she said, there has to be more. It can't just be I'm on this planet for 70 years or whatever, and they throw dirt on me and that's the end of it. also what she said was, we have guides. And when you and I spoke, you talked about your grandfather and your father.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about that presence.
Well, so, I had this experience in 1974. In 1975, I'm 21 years old. My grandfather dies. I go to his wake, and the place is absolutely packed with all of these people who are telling me stories about my own grandfather, stories that I had never heard before. And it hits me like a ton of bricks when I realize this man's influence, which is, not even to acknowledge his influence on me, which was enormous. And I thought exactly what you just said. Wait a minute. It's just not possible that Grandpa was on the planet for 80 years just to be gone and to be buried in Sacred Heart Cemetery in Meriden, Connecticut. No, that's not it. And I do have to tell you one humorous story related to that. He passed away in December of 75. He had turned 80 in June of 75. And at that point was still healthy. So, we threw this big birthday party for him at my parents' home. And the guy who happened to live next door to us was not the brightest bulb in the lamp, to say the least. So, Grandpa's so proud of himself that he made 80. He's walking around the neighborhood and he's telling people that he's an octogenarian. So he goes to this guy next door and he goes, "Hey, you know what? Today I'm an octogenarian. Do you know what that is?" The guy says, "It's got something to do with plants, doesn't it?" And Grandpa says, "The only thing I have to do with plants is pretty soon somebody's going to plant me."
You got to love the old guy's sense of humor.
Oh, I absolutely attribute my own sense of humor to Grandpa.
As you've gone through your life, this presence, your father, your grandfather, you feel their presence and them guiding you and giving you suggestions that, again, if you are listening, they're signs.
Yeah. I get goosebumps actually right now thinking about it. I will share with you and your audience the fact that in 1998, I crashed. I had this horribly depressive episode, which I've written about. Mm-hmm. And we'll be happy to share some of those things with you. That lasted for months, and I never experienced anything so terrifying. Mm-hmm. I was positive that at the point at which my father passed away, whenever that would be, that I would crash like that again. So at 4:00 in the morning on January 5th, 2014, I get a call from my mother, who's at an emergency room, and all she says is, and it just happened to be, I don't know, maybe a mile or two from where I lived. All she could say to me was, "It's your father. We're at the emergency clinic." So I just jumped in my car and I went there. And the doctor came out and he explained to us what was going on, and that, my dad had arrested and they were trying to revive him. And then he came out about 45 minutes later. And he said, I'm so sorry. Your father's gone. And I'm not joking about this. I've actually written about this too. My very first thought was, I don't know who you were working on. Whoever that was, I'm sure he's gone. And I'm so sorry for that. But that can't be my father, because that guy doesn't quit. I mean, he just wouldn't. And I didn't say that. And I was assured that he was indeed gone. And I started to think everything that I had thought before and started to fear this crash. And the doctor said, "Give us a few minutes." We worked on him a really long time. We got to clean him up a little bit and clean up the room. So he came back out And he said, you can go in now. And as I walked around the corner from the hallway into the room, you know, it was an emergency room. So my dad's gurney was behind the curtain. As I was walking into the room, I could feel him. And even before I reached to pull back the curtain, I could feel his presence so strongly. And the very first thing I thought was, what an idiot. Did you really think that he would just go, that he would just be gone, just leave you, let you crash, not continue to be with you in spirit? And I just started to connect all these dots. And to answer your question, yeah, of course he's here. He's absolutely here. I think I may have told you one time when we spoke earlier, pre-COVID, of course.
Yes.
My wife, Ann, would go to yoga classes. She never met my dad. Mm-hmm. He passed away before we even met. She tells me that my dad comes and talks to her.
Really?
While she's in yoga, and he wants me to know he's fine. Mm-hmm. We're fine. He's here.
I have heard that so many times, Mark. Again, it cannot be random. It just cannot be random. And you shared with me some stories where you're a writer, and you're a phenomenal writer, and you have your own communication company. And you shared a story that you went to a cabin, or you went to a friend's home, and you were introduced to Marvel Comics.
Oh, that was my cousin Gary. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll be happy to tell you that. And I'm sorry, but what did you derive from that? Just the non-accidental nature of that?
Yes, the non-accidental. It's not a random act. You're following the signs. Your grandfather has always guided you during this period in your life. You go to this place that, we're going to go hang out. All right?
Yeah, I was 10 years old. And we stayed, and I've written about this too. My parents, it was the first summer they rented a cottage in a place called Chapman Beach in Westbrook, Connecticut. So, you know, as you're headed up the shoreline, you would cross this little creek, and the next beach over was Chalker Beach. And then the next one up going toward Cornfield Point in Old Saybrook is Indiantown. And my cousin Gary, who's the same age as me, was staying in Indiantown that summer. So we used to be able to walk the beach to visit each other. And, you know, I was a guy who read DC comics. I read Superman and Batman and all this stuff, right? Excuse me. So I go up to visit Gary. And he's got this whole stash of Marvel comics, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and Thor and Doctor Strange and Iron Man. And I start reading this stuff. And all of this stuff was written by Stan Lee. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking at 10 years old, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm reading comic books. These things are visual media. And what's absolutely killing me is the writing. Because all of these characters, unlike the characters I was reading, which were completely two-dimensional, they had real personalities. They had weaknesses. They had bravado and sarcasm and humor and failings. And I thought that is just incredible. And, you know, my cousin Gary still doesn't believe that I'm a writer because he introduced me to Stan Lee, but it's positively true.
Mm-hmm. And these acts that they just seem to continue. People say, hey, I had the good luck or the good fortune. I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's the case. Another thing, a random act that you told me is you were taking a course, you were working, and you were taking a course, and the instructor told you, you have to take X.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was the moment. That was the experience that taught me that there are signs everywhere. In fact, you know, my initial reaction, the way I viewed it was somebody is trying to tell me something. So believe this or not, I was working in an appliance warehouse and I was unloading trailer trucks and rail cars full of refrigerators and dishwashers and radar ranges and televisions and all this ridiculous stuff. So I decided to take 2 classes at night at the University of Hartford. Monday nights, I took this intro to management class and could never figure out why I was taking it. And on Thursday nights, I was taking Introduction to Literature, which just lit up my whole being. And the guy who taught the literature class, his name was Bill Stull, said to me toward the end of that semester, listen, I'm teaching an honors seminar in the spring and you need to be in it. So, I'm the happy idiot. So I go, yeah, okay. And he said, no, I don't think you understand what I'm telling you. This class meets in the afternoon 3 days a week. And if you're going to take that, you're going to have to be here. So that's when I started thinking, somebody's trying to tell me something here. So I was living in Meriden. I was working in this warehouse in North Haven. I quit my job. I moved from Meriden. I moved to Hartford, and I enrolled in school full time. And it was that honors seminar for which I had to read The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized that not only somebody was trying to tell me something, but that if I had been awake prior, I would have connected all of these dots, which I ended up connecting in hindsight. But it made me much more aware of and open to things like that were probably going to be, I'll just say, put on my path. Signs that were going to be put on my path or on my path. And, people say, well, everybody's got this grand plan. God's got this plan for everybody. I don't doubt that for a moment, but I finally figured out it's not my job to know what that plan is. My chief job is to stay awake. Yes. Because if I'm awake to the signs, and I also don't think that there's any, I don't think there's any abdication of responsibility in this. And what I mean is, if you're given the signs, you still have to make decisions. And you have to make the best ones to make at the time and the ones that you perceive to be most responsible. And so that experience when I was invited to that seminar is what woke me up to all that and made me much more mindful that I need to be awake to those signs. And I also believe that everything that's supposed to happen does.
Yes.
But the key to that not only is reading the signs, but you have to be patient. I gave my notice at the ad agency where I worked to start my own business when I was 50 years old. And, I got a 2.5-hour lecture from the guy I worked for. And he said, you're never going to make it. This is a young man's business. You'll never be able to retire, blah, 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 blah. But I did it. And then people asked me, don't you wish you had done this when you were younger? And my answer still is, no, I couldn't have done it when I was younger. Whatever it was that needed to be aligned wasn't aligned. And it all aligned when I was 50. I gave my notice on my 50th birthday. That's not accidental either.
That's right. Now, I had a similar experience about the same age. And when we spoke about this, you said, you're scared to death. You're terrified.
Oh, my God.
So was I.
Terrified.
But then you get a call from your sister. Tell that story.
Oh, yeah. I'm driving home from work that same night, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? I mean, I for all I know, I might have just flushed everything. And my phone rings, and it's my older sister, and she says, I'm calling for 2 reasons. 1, to wish you a happy birthday, needless to say, but 2, to tell you that Dickie, her husband's name is Richard. Everybody calls him Dick or Dickie. Dickie's just been diagnosed with prostate cancer. So, Dick is a guy who graduated from the Naval Academy in the class of 1970, spent 35 years of active duty, came out, went right to work for Booz Allen. in a contracting job doing government contracting. I mean, the guy is he's as squared away as they possibly come. And so I thought, I already know what he's going to do. He's going to research his treatment options. He's going to pick one. He's going to find the best place he can to get it. Turned out to be Sloan Kettering. And he's going to go get it. And he's going to beat this thing, which is exactly what he did, by the way. So I'm sitting home when I get home and I'm thinking, come on, are you for real? You're worried because you just quit a job to create your own business and you're terrified, and Dickie's staring down the barrel of cancer and he's just getting on with it? Come on. You know, the Irish people say, get a grip of your knickers. So I figured that was my big get a grip call.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? The two other things I will tell you, and these aren't accidental either. There was a guy who was with me when I first started my business. He left about 2009 or 2010 or something. But he said to me two things, two different occasions when I was so terrified. He was a guy from the Dominican Republic, and I don't know why. I can't do his accent, but he always called me Chief. And he goes, Chief, let me ask you a question. Do you remember being born? I said, no, I don't remember being born. He said, do you know why you don't remember? I said, no, I don't know. And he goes, because it hurt so damn much. He said, you just gave yourself a rebirth. Did you really think it wasn't going to hurt? And I thought, wow. And on another occasion to me, he said, Chief, you just jumped out of an airplane. Even if your chute opens, did you really think it wouldn't hurt when you hit the ground? And I thought, oh, man. So, you know, all these things just kind of combined completely non-accidentally to get me by.
One of the things Dr. Kerr said that just sort of like, it was like the aha moment. She said to me, Frank, energy, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, comes up and it touches you on the shoulder and it says, hey, Mark, do this. And we don't, because you have free will. No, I'm not going to do that. Then it comes back and a little more than a tap. Still don't do it. She says, then it's a push. And finally, it's a 2x4 between the eyes. Listen, the signs are there. I'm telling you, this energy spirit, I'm telling you where to go. Stop being so damn stubborn and follow the signs. And I hear that from your life continuously.
Well, yeah. And it's actually, it's phenomenal how literally that translates sometime. So here's my version of natural selection. It was 2009, and I was living by myself, and I decided that I needed to get a dog. So I went on the website of the local Humane Society chapter, whatever it's called. And they had a dog on there that looked really attractive to me, a female. So I drive over to this place, and they walk me through the building and to the kennel. I was greeted by this young man at the counter. They take me out to the kennel, and I saw the dog. And she was really friendly. And a woman who was out there said to me, oh, she's not ready for adoption yet. I said, well, she's on your website. She said, yeah, I know, but she's not ready for adoption yet. So I said, okay. So I walk back through the kennel and I see this boxer. He happened to be a male. And he was in the back of his cage, or I guess you call it a kennel cage.
Right.
And I almost had the sense, he was a little bit reluctant. I almost had the sense that he wanted to figure out first if I was for real. So, you know, he finally came toward the front and he let me pet him and everything. And I said to the same woman, well, what about this guy? And she said, no, he's not ready for adoption yet either. And I said, look, this was a Saturday. I said, what if I give you some money? I'll call you on Tuesday. Whichever one of these two dogs is ready, you'll already have my money. I'll just come pick up the dog. No, can't do that. I said, you can't take my money? She said, yeah, we can take your money, but we can't guarantee you're going to get the dog. So I said, forget about that. So to get out of the building, after walking through the kennel, I had to walk down this L-shaped corridor that was floor to ceiling cages with cats in them. So there's a young lady, she was standing there and she was holding a cat. And I stopped to talk to her. And while I'm standing there, this is what reminded me of the story. I feel that. I turn around, there's this little black and white tuxedo kitten reaching through the cage and tapping me on the shoulder. So I open the cage, I pull him out, he parks himself right here and he starts purring like a lunatic. Mm-hmm. Then I start feeling drops of water on the back of my neck. So I'm looking up. I think maybe there's like condensation on some pipes or something. There's nothing up there. So I do a 180 and I turn around and there's a black cat on the other side of the hallway and he's in his cage and I don't know what he's splashing at, but he's splashing in his water bowl, which is why I'm getting these drops on my neck. So I put the little guy, the little tuxedo guy back and I pull this other guy out. He's completely black. He does exactly the same thing. And he starts purring like a lunatic. And the woman says to me, I don't know if I should tell you this, but I was here earlier today and they let those two kittens get out and play together and they just had a blast. And I said, terrific. So I walked back up to the counter and the kid who greeted me on the way in said, did you find your dog? I said, yeah, 2 cats. And I brought the cats home. Those 2 clowns selected me.
Right.
I could have been stubborn about it. I could have thought, oh, no. I came here for a dog, so I didn't get my dog. I'm going home empty-handed. But those 2 guys said, come on, us.
Here we are. Here's the message.
Yeah, no accident.
It's crazy. Some of the other things that, in talking to you last time, you mentioned you went to an event in Nashville, and you had a customer at Nashville, and you interacted with one of their people. Tell that story.
Yeah, it was an insurance industry conference. This was 2011, and there was several of my clients there, but one in particular. And there was a young lady who worked for this client named Joanna. Mm-hmm. And we're both smiling because I know you know her. So I got to spend a little bit of time with her. And the Monday night we were there happened to be her boss's birthday. So I took her boss and her and a whole bunch of other people out to dinner. And it just so happened that she sat to my left that night. And I got a chance to talk to her. And, for the first time, really, I came to understand how intelligent she was and insightful and well-read and thoughtful. But what I had noticed when she was working for my client was that neither her boss nor her boss's boss was terribly ambitious. And whenever we'd be on our weekly status calls, if they didn't feel like doing something, they just dropped it all in Joanna's lap. And she never got rattled. So I thought, wow, this is just one remarkable person. So the dinner's on Monday night. I'm headed home on Tuesday. And I'm sitting in the airport in Nashville waiting for my flight. And I'm thinking, man, if there were 2 Joannas, or if she had a twin sister, I'd hire them. Thursday of that same week is our status call. And I get on and her boss says, Joanna's not going to be on the call with us today. And I said, why not? And he said, because we let her go. I said, let her go as in fired? He said, yeah. I said, okay, she's not coming back. He said, I don't think so. So we had the call. That evening, I called his boss's boss and said, listen, I understand that you've let Joanna go. Do you mind if I talk to her? And he said, no, go ahead. So this was still June. I called her, had the conversation, offered her the job. And she said, give me some time to think about it. And I said, all the time you need. She called back in late August. And she said, I've been thinking about it for the past couple of months. I would be happy to come to work for you on one occasion. Or I'm sorry, with one condition. And I said, what's that? She said, don't make me do sales. I said, you're not a salesperson. Why would I make you do that? All I want you to do is keep us organized. So this August, it'll be 10 years.
Wow. And it's another random act? I don't think so.
No, not at all.
It's a purpose to it. I read an article you wrote, Mark. You wrote it back in 2019, but I just found it. It was called A Matter of Letters. And we both have a friend, Kimberly Davis.
Oh, yeah.
And in Kimberly's book, she talked about an episode with a homeless person. And you had a similar type thing.
Oh, well, and here we go again about signs. So I'm obviously highly persuaded by Joseph Campbell. I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Fisher King,
yes,
with Robin Williams and
yes.
Jeff Bridges.
Yes.
And to my mind, at least the first 2/3 of that, maybe 3/4 of that movie were phenomenal. I kind of thought it fell apart at the end. But I think Terry Gilliam directed that film. I'm thinking the whole time I'm watching it, Terry Gilliam must have read Campbell. I mean, there's just too much stuff going on in this movie. So I saw it, I think, on a Saturday. The next Monday, I'm still working for a big corporation in downtown Hartford. I decide to go out for a cup of coffee. So as I'm walking down the street, headed to the shop where I was going to get my coffee, I see this guy walking toward me, and I know what's coming. I mean, the dude's a panhandler. I know that. And I typically don't give people like that money. I probably should. So he's coming toward me. He's absolutely making eye contact, and he's not letting his eye contact go. And most of those guys, they'll look down at their feet and shuffle a little. He's looking me right in the eyes. And he comes up and he says to me, I'm trying to find the difference between should and shouldn't. I think it's a matter of letters. And I reached in my pocket and I pulled out a $5 and I gave it to the guy. And I still wonder, why me? Why me? Why that day? Why that particular choice of words? I mean, it was way too loaded for me to just dismiss it as nothing and blow that guy off. I mean, that's just a brilliant statement. And I also wonder, who was this guy? What happened to him? What was his education? Why was he so insightful? Did he see something in me? I don't know. But I couldn't ignore it.
And for somebody who lives in words and letters, that was a profound event.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And you know what? I'm laughing about it right now. I can't always laugh about it because sometimes it's just such an incredibly loaded moment. And, I mean, when I worked in that job, I used to think, I'm a 30-something-year-old guy wearing a shirt and tie every day. I look like a suit and tie every day. I look like $1 million. And I was so utterly unfulfilled. So, I figure this guy's coming at me and he either thinks, well, here's this guy who's got the world on a string, or he saw right through me and thought, man, this dude all dialed up like this, he's miserably unhappy. Mm-hmm. Either one is possible.
That's right. That's incredible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time here. Mark, what last words do you want to leave with the viewers?
Wow. Save the most loaded question for last. I'll tell you this. A woman once asked me, what is your why? Can you tell me in 5 words? So I'll cheat and tell you that, or I'll tell you that I cheated and hyphenated. I said, I write to restore self-faith. And I don't mean mine. So what I would encourage people to do is to trust themselves, and to trust themselves to read the signs, to trust themselves to do the things that they want to do. And, especially now, it seems like, all of us are looking for answers, and everything seems so chaotic and confusing, and everybody's looking everywhere else. I'll share one more story. As this recovering Roman Catholic, I happened to have the opportunity to go into a congregational church down in Old Lyme, Connecticut. And I was with the pastor. His name was David Good. What a perfect name.
Yes, for a pastor.
I walk in there. I said to him, hey, where's all the stuff? He goes, what stuff? I said, the Catholic Church, we got statuaries and candles and stained glass windows. He went just like this. He said, it's right here. If you don't bring it, it's not here. Mm-hmm. That's the last word I would like to leave folks with. It's here. Whether you decide to trust it or not is up to you. It's here.
It's there. Absolutely. Well, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Mark for this incredible story. And he has said what I have believed for a while, that random acts aren't random. There's a purpose. There's a reason. Watch, listen, follow the signs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what life throws at you, and it's going to throw a lot at you, I want you to do 3 things. Look up, get up, and never, ever give up. Pick up the pieces if you have to and start moving forward. And better times and better people will enter your life. If you want more information about Mark, and touch base with him on his website, or contact me and I'll make sure that he gets the information. We're in contact all the time. You can see this show on ROKU TV or on my YouTube page, Frank Zacarri. And if you go to the YouTube page, please subscribe. I also send links to John or to Mark and his team, and they'll post it in all the places that they post what they do. Let me leave you one last thing, ladies and gentlemen. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Mark showed us where many of those rocks are. Join me again next week. We'll look into another near-death experience and life-altering event. Thank you. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you, Frank.